Hello Commodore fans, this is Apex Technol again. Today I got something relatively unique for you. This is something pretty special that I have here, and I'll explain a bit more about it that I've managed to find out over the time that I've had it. And I also want to make this a bit of a tribute to a certain Commodore, a certain Commodore friend that I've had, and unfortunately, he passed away, and it happens to be the individual I got this particular board from. And I won't go into too many details, but his name was James, and I've known him over the internet now for the last couple years, and very sadly, he unfortunately passed away last month, like I mentioned. And he was actually the individual that I got this particular board off of, because the way it happened, he had two Commodore 128 motherboards that he wanted me to take a look at for him because they weren't working. So he sent me this particular board and another regular Commodore 128 board. And I managed to do a little horse trading with him for this one because he didn't particularly care that much that, it was an early version. And at the time, I really didn't know exactly what this board really was. So, but anyways, we did a little trade for it, and everything was copacetic. And like I said, unfortunately, he passed away, like I said. And this board is a really neat and unique board in and of itself. And the fact that I got it from him kind of makes it mean a lot more to me now. Because, like I said, we had a really good internet friendship going, and we would always, send questions and pictures back and forth. And, hey, look at this new thing I got, and so on and so forth. He was really into the Commodore 264 series machines. That was one of the cool things about James, is that he wasn't just interested in your standard 64s. He was really into the neat, kind of the off the beaten path, I guess you could say. Like I said, he was into Plus 4s, Commodore 16s, VIC 20s. That was the thing that really interested him. And that's what I always thought was cool about him, because when it came to the 264 series machines, he knew a lot more about them than even I did, and that always impressed me. So anyways, I just wanted this to be a little bit of a tribute video to James, because he certainly touched my life and probably many others in the Commodore community, and he will be dearly missed. He really will be. So anyways, about this board here, the first thing that jumped out at me, obviously, when I got this out of the box last year and was looking at it, was look at all these ceramic chips. They are everywhere. Now, I'll start off by saying these two chips obviously are not original to the board. I burned my own EPROMs and replaced them here. And these are the earliest revisions of the code on these chips that I could find, which I'm pretty sure would be appropriate for this board. Because as I'm sure you can tell by the title of this video, this is actually a pre-production Commodore 128 board. Now, it's not exactly a prototype, but it's from before the actual commercial release of the Commodore 128. So anyways, going on here, all the rest of the chips, as far as I know, are original to this board. The CIAs, everything, the SID chip, everything else except for these two are original to the best of my knowledge. And as you can see here, there's the combined 64 ROM there. There's the basic low. There's the other C128 ROMs. There's one of the CIAs. There's the 80 column chip. There's the 40 column VIC chip. There's the SID. And the thing I found unique is that even though this board is from early 1985, the VIC and the SIDs are like mid 1984 chips. So in a way, that kind of leads me to believe that they might actually be original to this board. I can't see why they wouldn't be. The rest of them are. See, there is the MMU. See, that's a date code of the 11th week of 1985. You can see some of the chips have a little bit of rust on them. It's not a super big deal, but this board has been affected by a little bit of moisture. There's the other CIA. There is the the Z80. There's the 8502 CPU, that's ceramic as well. And here's the 8721 PLA. That's the SRAM, and that's the character ROM. The 128 character ROM, rather. And here are your 128K of memory here. As you see, the memory in this particular board is NEC branded. Your actual 4164-2 chips, 20 nanosecond. So anyhow, just going to do another quick scan of the board here in a slow fashion so you can see. Quick note about these little chips here. This EL7407. I seem to remember these are from, I think like Bulgaria or something. I forget the actual name of the manufacturer. But you see these chips in some Commodore equipment fairly commonly. You can actually see a couple factory modifications there where they cut some traces here and here. But these particular type of chips with this funky brown package have a somewhat high failure rate compared to standard TTL chips. So that's just something to keep an eye out for. You'll most commonly encounter these in 1541 drives, actually. And these chips a lot of times will be in the path of the serial input. So if the serial input on the drive isn't working, but the drive boots up, passes its self-test, but it won't talk over the IEC bus, chances are it might have one of these chips in it. It's just something to look out for. So anyways, after I got this board and seen all the ceramic chips and realized it had to have been a very early version of a C128 board, I sent Bil Herd an email and asked him what the heck is this thing, essentially. And I'm going ahead and I made some screenshots of the exchange I had with Bil Herd, and I will insert them here so you can read them. Now, speaking of Bil Herd, I have this in my collection, and this is probably one of the crowns of my collection, I guess you could say. And as you can see right there, the man himself has signed this computer. I actually managed to meet Bil Herd at the 2016 VCF Midwest Computer Show, and handed him this computer and had him sign it. And this particular computer is it's sort of meaningful to me because this is the Commodore that I've owned the longest at this moment. All of my original Commodores from when I was a kid and that sort of a thing have long since been scattered to the wind. But this particular Commodore 128, I got it sometime, I would say 2003 or so. And at the time, I really wanted a Commodore 64, honestly. And I ended up getting this given to me for free because I used to hang out at this computer shop that was local to me here. And one day this older lady came in with all this stuff in boxes. She goes, I want to trade my computer in for a newer one. This old computer doesn't run all the modern stuff anymore. And when I came in a few days later, this was all still sitting in boxes. And the guy that ran the computer store said, hey, do you want this Commodore over here? I know you like those Commodore computers. And of course I took one look at it and said, oh man, Commodore 128. Because I remember when I was a kid, I didn't see Commodore 128s all that often. So the chance to own one for essentially free, I couldn't pass that up. So anyways, I've had this computer since roughly circa 2003 or so. And then unbelievably, like I said, I had a chance to meet Bil Herd himself and have him sign the machine that he designed. So I just wanted to show this off real quick because this is something that I've had in my collection for a little while, and this one's going to the grave with me. This is a really important machine to me. And it was a very memorable experience meeting Bil Herd Because if any of you have watched videos of Bil Herd on the internet, as I'm sure you all have, and I have too, meeting him in person is basically everything you would believe it to be. He's a super easygoing, nice guy, just really humble, and I don't know. It was just it was a magical experience, I guess you could say, without getting too crazy. And that's one of the funny things about me is, you know, I've had the chance to meet a few people that most people would consider quote unquote celebrities, and that doesn't really do much for me. The people that I kind of fall over myself when I meet are people that the average person wouldn't know about or care. But anyways, I'm going to continue on with this video about the pre-production Commodore 128 board, and we'll wrap this up. Anyhow, back to this pre-production board. You can see the RF modulators seeing a bit of moisture at some point, maybe even humidity. As you can see, it's got some rust on it. It's not super bad, but just have to look after it. As long as I keep it indoors, it should be fine, because this thing ain't ever going out to the garage, believe me. Unfortunately, I don't have the original lid that went over the VIC chips here. I have other ones from other 128s that I could put on here, but I kind of want to leave this board as original as it is, as best as I possibly can, because it is such a unique, you know, item. I actually considered framing this thing and putting it on the wall, to be completely honest with you. But I just wanted to point out some of the differences between this and your standard production 128 board. Now, if you read the emails from Bill, he mentioned the via stitching around the edges, and that is these little tiny dots that you see along the edges here. And that was done in an attempt to cut down on some of the noise, but as you could see in the email, he said this didn't actually help any, so they abandoned this and just went to a standard ground plane around the edge in later revisions. Another thing that you will notice right off the bat is there's no famous Z80 bodge wire that runs over here to the Z80. It usually follows this little line along here. That's not present on this particular board. And to be honest with you, I haven't tried to boot CP/M on this particular board. Unfortunately, I don't have a 128 keyboard in here right now, or a standard 128 board to compare this one against to. But I'll point out the rest of the differences as best as I can remember. So yeah, you got the via stitching around the edges here. You're missing the Z80 bodge wire here. There's some videos online of Bil Herd talking about that and why it was added. And we'll go ahead and flip the board around here real quick, and I'll show you a couple things. Here's the backside of the board. First thing you'll notice here, there's the artwork number, and it says Rev 3. Now, the Commodore service manuals that you can find on the internet only make mention of a Rev 6 and Rev 7 boards. And Bil Herd called this board a Rev 7 pre-FCC board. So I don't know how this Rev 3 corresponds to the Rev 7 that Bill mentioned, but I'm going to defer to him because he obviously knows more about these than I ever will. So as you can see here, there's a lot of factory bodge wires here. I was rather surprised to see this when I flipped it around. That's another thing that kind of had me wondering what this board was, because there's no way in the world they would produce boards like this for full production and have as many bodge wires as this. There's just no way that would work out. Because every board they would make, they would not have people sitting here adding these bodge wires to each one of them. That just never would happen. And another thing you'll find conspicuously absent is the famous RIP message that's down here in the corner. And I'll add a couple photos of what I'm talking about of standard 128 boards here when I go to edit the video. So you should see those in just a minute. But anyways, this is my pre-production Commodore 128 board. Let me flip it back around here gently. And I'll go ahead and plug it in and fire it up and show you that it does indeed work. I don't want to run it for too long because, you know, number one, I don't have the lid to the VIC chips on here. This board is in original working condition, and if any one of these chips were to go bad, my chances of finding replacements for some of these is basically zero. So I will show it to you operating and maybe running a game, but I won't leave it on for any length of time. Because like I said, I'm interested in preserving this thing, not in actually using it, of course. So anyways, here is the board operating. So we went ahead and plugged it in, got the power supply going, and here's it booting up. There you go. There is it running in 128 mode. And like I said, unfortunately, I don't have a 128 keyboard for testing purposes, so I can't really do a whole lot in 128 mode without a keyboard. I'm going to go ahead and plug my Easy Flash cartridge in and run it in 64 mode and show you a game running. Got just a second. Easy Flash in there, so let's fire it up. There's the classic Easy Flash screen I'm sure you're all familiar with, if you happen to have an Easy Flash 3, and if not, you should get one. So let's load up my game collection ROM here I compiled a few years ago, and trying to think of a game I can play without the keyboard here. I think Grid Runner might do it. Gotta use my handy dandy joystick port switcher here. There we go. So as you can see, she runs in 64 mode, and the SID chip is fully working too, which that was a bit of a relief. So anyhow, that was my pre-production 128 board, and unfortunately I don't have a case to go along with this machine. I'm not sure. I would imagine it had a case at some point, but it got separated at some point in the past, and this is all that exists now. But still, I think this is a pretty cool thing to have. So anyhow, that was my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will be back with something more interesting at some point in the future, hopefully. Alright, y'all, take care, and SafeX Techno out. Have a good one.